Welcome to another episode of Roses Are Red podcast with your host, Mrs. Red Rose, her co-host, Sam I Am from the Married Couple Podcast, and AC from Midnight Media.
Welcome in, everyone. Welcome in. Welcome in to AC, Sam, and Barbara. Welcome in. Just want to do a quick disclaimer before we go on with the show today. The views and the opinions expressed in this video are personal, so please do your own research. Do not take our word for it. And there is a trigger warning if there's certain things that trigger you due to the discussion of this podcast tonight. So with that said, AC.
Hey, how are you? How's it going, everybody? How you been? Hi, Barb.
Good.
Welcome. Thank you too
Yes,
for
welcome.
being here. Yeah.
Much. Thanks.
Yeah. So, you are the district attorney of. Tell the people where exactly you work.
Sure. I'm the district attorney in New Mexico of the 13th Judicial District, which covers 3 separate counties in New Mexico, approximately 10,000 square miles. So it's a pretty wide, diverse area.
I see. And in that area, is that a densely populated area where most of things that could be litigated happen?
Well, yes and no. I mean, we get our share of all the major crimes. We are right up next to Albuquerque in both of my counties, which means that we get a lot of spillover from Albuquerque. And in fact, the FBI, when they talk about their crime statistics and they say Albuquerque Metro, that includes 2 counties in my district. So yes, we do get our share of violent crime. We get everything that the big cities get, proportionally with a little bit fewer resources to deal with them. But yeah, we get everything.
I see. Yeah, some people, might be be working in just like a smaller town or a smaller parish that might not see as much action, might not see as much violent crime, and then when something awful happens, it's like it's really, really shocking because it only happens in the big city, But you have seen probably your share of everything, a lot like we're going to talk about tonight, Andrew Romero, which is a horrible person. Now that we can say that, not
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, I mean, no, well,
I think we can.
we can, but now we can actually say definitively that he's an awful person in the eyes of the state.
Yeah.
And that's the important part. So
Yes.
yeah.
I mean, his appeals are all final, so there's really no prohibition about anybody speaking on any aspect of the case, prosecution or investigation or otherwise. So
Hence why you're here. Definitely. Do you guys have any opening questions for Bar? I know
yes.
This is your sister, but Rose, did you have anything that was on your mind before we kind of go into the case? Because we have a kind of compressed show here. I want to ask her a lot of questions. The girls want to ask her a lot of questions, and we want to talk about this guy.
I think as I go, I have questions with the story.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
I
think that's how we'll work
if
it.
I ask questions,
yeah.
If we ask questions now, I don't think people understand what's going on. So,
well,
yeah,
I mean, just in general,
go.
anything you wanted to know for Barb before we got started. But, so Andrew Romero, this is the guy we're going to talk about, and this is the guy that, unfortunately, Barbara is more acquainted with than I'm sure she ever wanted to be. So, Andrew Romero is involved in a high-profile case where he was convicted of first-degree murder and other charges related to the fatal shooting of Rio Rancho police officer Greg Benner. This happened in New Mexico, of course, that were Barb in her district. So Romero faced a habitual offender hearing in November 22nd that he was sentenced to life in prison, and his defense team filed an appeal, which is what Barb was talking about, which is all the appeals are final now. Excuse me. And in the state Supreme Court, where he's citing reasons that he believed he led to an unfair trial. I don't have questions about that as well because I want to know exactly what made it an unfair trial. It's pretty black and white as the evidence I saw, and the appeal included the trial's location, the influence of the media coverage, and things like that. If you saw things like that, it'd be amazing for you to share from your perspective. But the person who lost her life was Officer Greg Nigel Benner. He was tragically shot by the dude in question, and the incident occurred, like I said, in New Mexico. The circumstances of his death is like a stark reminder of the laws that our law enforcement people go through every day, and how it today we're lucky enough to get a perspective where it interplays with what it looked like on the back end and what it felt like to do these motions to seemingly a horrible, remorseless killer. And there's got to be some joy in that, I would imagine.
Satisfaction.
Yeah. Not joy, right? I guess that's the wrong
Yes.
is the right word. How did you become aware of it? Was it put on your desk? Was it something that you kind of ran into? Something that you wanted, or how did you get involved with the case in general?
Well, in my district, and at the time I wasn't the elected district attorney, but I did work in the district. And in the district, there are, like I said, 3 separate counties. And at that time, I was the deputy district attorney in charge of Sandoval County, where the murder happened, because Rio Rancho is in Sandoval County. And so when it happened, actually, I was in another trial when it happened. And then I was supposed to go to a conference, and my boss was like, well, you could do this case. You got to go to the conference. And I'm like, the heck with the conference. I'm taking this case. Because my feeling was always, these guys, Rio Rancho PD, these are guys I work with every day. It's my case. These are my guys. So I basically told my boss I was taking it and went from there.
Was there a chance of someone taking it over, and were you worried that they would take it over and kind of fumble it? Is that why you wanted to do it?
Not so much. I just felt a personal attachment to it. I mean, I knew I would do a good job. I picked for my co-counsel a very experienced trial attorney. In fact, he was my mentor and first boss in Sierra County when I first started prosecuting. So, I mean, we had, I will say our boss had made it clear that we would have any resources we needed. And, we sat down with our staff because, relatively speaking, we have a small staff. I mean, we don't have hundreds of people like a city like Albuquerque might have, or Omaha. We don't have hundreds and hundreds of people in each office. So I had to make it clear from the beginning to all of my staff that this case is priority. No matter what else you're doing, if something comes up on this case and someone asks you to do something on this case, you do it, no questions asked. Because we wanted to make sure that we did everything right, that we didn't fumble anything, and that, we didn't, because of some little detail we missed or some technicality, that we would be responsible for not bringing justice to Nigel and his family.
I'm sorry, I'm going to ask questions if you guys don't jump in.
No, I actually had a question. When you see a case like this and when you start it, what is your process? I mean, you have evidence. How do you take the evidence presented, that's collected and then, especially in this case, let's kind of tell it a little bit. Andrew Romero and his girlfriend Tabitha had robbed a Taco Bell earlier in the day. They robbed it to
lucrative, very lucrative.
Yeah. Well, and they robbed it to get money for drugs. From there, they had stopped at a gas station to get snacks, but were going to rob another restaurant shortly thereafter. As they were pulling up to that restaurant, they were Officer Benner had pulled in behind them and ran their plates, and it was bad. They came back, it came back that it could be suspicious. So we pulled them over. It was a routine traffic stop. She gave her correct information from what I remember. He gave false information. From there, when he came back and she was on probation, they took off. Romero said, drive, and they took off and ended up, I don't know, a block away at an Albertsons or right outside of an Albertsons or the library. And that's when he kicked her out of the car. This is just a quick synopsis. Any rate, so from there, he kicked her out of the car and then proceeded to shoot Officer Benner. So you have evidence. She's out. She stays. I mean, he kicked her out of the car. He flees. When you get all this evidence, how do you put it together to paint the story of what happened that day and to ultimately show a jury that he is a killer, you know?
Uh-huh. Well, the first thing is, I think I messed something up. Can you
Oh.
still? Okay, there we are.
We got you.
Look
We
at
got
us.
There was a lot of investigative material. I mean, a lot. There were, I think, 5 or 6 different law enforcement agencies involved, including the FBI and the U.S. Marshals, and of course the county, city, state police agencies. So every agency that got involved, regardless of what part they had to file a report. So we had volumes and volumes of discovery, and we knew that from the beginning that was going to be an issue. So we actually had talked to our administrative office of the district attorneys, and they provide specialized IT support when we need it. And I had asked the director if we could have somebody come and help organize and put all this information together on some kind of a drive so that we wouldn't lose it and so that we would have it. And that's what he did. And then, it was backed up like 3 or 4 different ways, because we really wanted to make sure that we did everything that we could to organize the information. Now, the second thing after that, I mean, of course, part of it's just the tedious process of going through everything, reading everything, looking at every video, every audio, everything. So that's part of it. And then along the way, there's meetings periodically along the way with all of the key players. So in other words, there were 2 lead investigating agencies, because normally you have 1 lead investigating agency. But in this case, Rio Rancho, because it was one of their officers, their protocol really was to get an outside agency. So they got the New Mexico State Police to come in and sort of assist, kind of take over the investigation. But in reality, they kind of did the investigation together. So whenever we met to strategize and see what were we missing, what else did we need, et cetera, everybody would come to the table and we would just talk about everything. We made sure that we had every piece of evidence that was collected. And believe me, a lot of it was duplicative, because like I said, there were a lot of officers out there, as you can imagine.
Of course.
So we had a lot of duplication, and part of the process is weeding through all that, because one of the things I have to do as a prosecutor, as a state's attorney, is file a witness list of the witnesses that I plan to or may call at trial. Well, our witness list was like 3 pages long, which annoyed the judge to no end. But then I'm like, well, if we don't list them and we need them, we won't be able to call them because we didn't list them.
Right. You're shooting yourself in the foot. You're like limiting yourself on what you can do later. Can I ask you a quick question about the organization before we move on? I'm so sorry to cut you off.
Sure. No, go ahead.
How this is always on my mind as well, because you see now, one of my best friends, a lawyer. I understand how much volumes of information you have to process. How much harder was that before the advent of like cloud services and like being able to instantly share any piece of evidence with anyone? Do you find like now it's a lot swifter to be able to get through your job because of all these new technologies? Do you use them, or do you still use old school ways?
We use them. I mean, it's like a double-edged sword, because there are 14 district attorneys in the state of New Mexico, and we have one sort of overarching administrative office, which provides all of our IT support, including our internet, our case management, which helps us process discovery and things of that nature, like you're talking about.
Mm.
We have been fighting for 2 years to get it upgraded, and because it's a mess right now. So unfortunately, yes, we went paperless. My office went paperless 2 years ago. We don't have paper files anymore. Well, I don't
Wow.
have, they're not in the office. So it's great when it works, but when it doesn't work, it just kind of halts everything. So, it's like, I guess that's true of most technology. It's great when it works. It can be a useful tool. Where it has been helpful is when a lot of the law enforcement agencies have gotten on board with their own electronic evidence collection and sharing, so that now some agencies, the bigger ones like the state police, they can just download, they can send us their reports, etc., electronically, and we get them and put them on our system and shoot them right to the defense. So in that respect, it has been easier.
I can also imagine that, I guess, yeah, it can go down. You can not have internet. You can have faulty stuff. You need a specific IT person to come help you, so you can have your discovery again and continue work. But I would imagine that it's better than burning. Paper can burn, and evidence can somehow disappear as well. So you're right. It sounds like a double-edged sword. It's there forever, kind of imprinted, but can you access it? And if you can't, it's kind of like fireproof and destroy-proof, right?
Yes, exactly.
I want to
So,
read May's comment here real quick.
Yeah.
May said, "I understand the loyalty of the police department and wanting to be
A part of, I
a
think,
part of
a
part of
case
it."
to help in bringing justice. I had to read this 5 times in my head to,
Very cool.
yeah, very cool
privileged
to back the police department. Indeed, just wanted to say it. So thank
Thanks,
you,
May.
May.
Yes.
So you had a ton of discovery, correct?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So, and obviously you don't use all of it in the trial. I mean, I'm sure you use most of it or a lot of it. How do you edit and how do you, I mean, you obviously have the expertise of knowing, okay, this is pertinent, is it just come from experience or, I mean, your closing argument was great. You were like, we have all this evidence. It points right to him. This is, I don't know how you can't convict, right?
Well, I think because the other side will try to hey, the media is really poisoning us. Hey,
well,
how did you get
I
to
listened to part of that one. I didn't. Yeah, but how do you come to that point?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, part of it is, yeah, like you say, experience. But I mean, in a case, in any, I would say any major case, like any murder case or child abuse, child molestation case, you try to have your exhibits. For example, everything that you want to introduce into trial, you have that laid out. Some jurisdictions, some judges will make you file an exhibit list. So you have to kind of let everybody know what your, exhibits are going to be. But regardless of whether the judge does that or not, what I always do and what I did in this case is, I file, a proposed exhibit list, a proposed witness list. I give it to the defense, I give it to the court, and then we have a hearing. And, anything we stipulate to, it just saves time at trial.
Right.
If most of the stuff we stipulate to, then during trial, it just makes it a lot smoother. This is the exhibit, we've already stipulated to, it's already been entered, blah, blah, blah. Now, but if there's something we're going to fight about, we can fight about it before the trial. And then we already know whether it's coming in or not. So that's the advantage of that. But you try to get everything that's relevant. A lot of it is duplicative, you, especially like you talk about the pictures of the scene. I mean, as you can imagine, there were hundreds of pictures of the scene, overhead, this angle, that angle, across the street, across this street, there was a million, but not all of them were needed to prove our case to the jury. So just picking out the ones you think are going to be most impactful, and then Some of them, you know, you're going to have to argue about. Um, every time there's any kind of gory pictures, we always have to argue about it. And I know from experience that the judge is not going to allow all of them in. So I try to be smart and judicious in the ones that I choose, only choosing the ones that, although they may be graphic, they really are needed to
Hit
make.
home.
Impactful. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
one of the questions for yourself later was going to be: did you ever have a piece of evidence that you couldn't use because you thought it was absolutely too much to you? Or like, I guess that falls into this. Like, is there a picture you're like, this is way too much to show a judge? Like, you know, someone, I don't know, not to go into this, like someone like in pieces or something like that, you know?
Well, not with murder cases, but with child abuse cases, like child sexual abuse cases, you when they have a sexual assault exam, you know, and they have an internal examination of their genitalia, um, even if there's injuries, I learned a long time ago from a pediatrician that says, you know, don't show those pictures. First of all, the jury, they don't know what the hell they're looking at anyway. Just show the diagram. They'll look at the diagram. It'll make more sense to them. It'll be more impactful. So since that day, I've never shown another one of those pictures ever. And I always thought, oh, well, you should show the most graphic one because that's the one that's going to make the most impact. Not necessarily. Because sometimes if it's too graphic, the jurors won't look at that. I mean, they just
They
won't.
can't. Yeah.
They just refuse to look or process.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
These are normal people that were just called into jury duty, and now they're looking at, you know, I'm not gonna say it, but like, you know, you're just looking at those kind of things, you're like scarred for life.
Yeah.
Oh, so
Is
So-
there
Go ahead.
is there anything ever like you have too much to show? Is there been where the judge is like, okay, this is way too much, or
All the time. Yeah. All the time, because we always, it's just kind of the nature of the adversarial process. I mean, we usually want more pictures than the judge will allow or that the defense will agree to. So, you know, we make our arguments, the defense makes their argument of why it's inappropriate or too prejudicial, and the judge usually compromises somewhere in the middle. So that's just kind of the way it goes every trial.
Do you kind of just give everything just to have most of it land? Okay.
Yes.
So as you're doing discovery and putting compiling your case, is there usually a moment where you're like, yes, this is it. I know, I've like that aha moment, like I know I can prove this.
Hmm.
Or is it, I don't know. I maybe I didn't say that right, but I think
You said it right. I know exactly what you're saying. And yes, there is. I'm trying to think if there was in this case. I guess in this case, if there was one, because the hardest thing to proving first degree murder is really hard because you have to prove that they had the state of mind, deliberate intent, versus they just and they shot
flipped out. Yeah.
I love how you, in your closing arguments, read the definition of deliberate intent and then said, now hold on. In less time than it took me to read this, you can have deliberate intent and make that decision. I thought that was brilliant.
Brilliant.
Well,
so good.
if dumbass hadn't shot 4 times, it would have been harder.
Yes.
Because they would have had a legitimate argument. Well, he just panicked and he just shot 1 time and he took off. Okay, maybe second.
No. You emptied a quarter clip or whatever, like, no.
Well, and yeah, you were like, every time he fired, he made a decision. Yes.
That's what that is. But I mean, a lot of it is just, I don't know. Some of it, I think, I don't want to say divine inspiration, but I kind of think so.
You have to have like a writing gift also when you're writing things like that, like in the time and, setting up a punchline. It's not in a funny way, but like a punchline is like setting up like, and in the time I took to tell you that this could have happened. And it's like these are just normal people you're talking to. You're not talking to, super scholars. So you have to put it in ways like that's all an art. Yeah.
Yes. Putting in ways that make sense to them, because, all what I try to convey to people is law it's not hard. It's just common sense and logic. We all have that, Don't try to overthink something. Usually the simplest explanation is,
Occam's razor. Yeah.
Occam's razor. Exactly. So, just it doesn't take if it was that complicated and we needed legal experts, then we would have a jury of jurists.
Right.
Like,
With wigs on, and that's not how we do it.
we
Right.
don't,
Exactly. Right.
So I try to understand, try to talk to the jurors like I would want to be talked to. Like if I was talking to somebody like anybody, like my family or you guys, just this is what happened. Instead of, I think too many attorneys get up there and they try to act like, they try to sound like attorneys instead of just like,
Yeah.
just
You
talk,
got to relate.
just talk to them.
Right. And
One
then
thing go
you
ahead.
don't want to talk down. I'm sorry. I wanted to add something to
No,
what
you're
Barb
fine.
said. Yeah. It's not talking. Sometimes you end up talking at them and not with
Yeah.
them. Right. And then
Yeah.
they don't want to be lectured either. It's like, wait, don't you need me to be here to, and then I don't understand what you're really saying. You have to have a connection. I know
Yeah.
it's not like it is on TV, but I've seen some real arguments in real life. And it's just, to me, it's a poetry to be able to connect with them, or the other side connect with them and speak to them, not at them, and not make them feel small,
One thing
or dumb.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
When I talk to young attorneys about trial advocacy, that's one of the things, like in this some of the slides I sent you, Sam, is you try to develop a theme, and you start that from the time you first start talking to the jury. Like in this particular case, this just happened to happen at a time where there was a lot of negative publicity about police.
Yeah.
The Ferguson thing had happened, and we had 2 Albuquerque police officers on trial, started the week after our trial started, for killing a homeless man. All this was going on at the same time. So I knew that I had to, from the beginning, this is who Officer Benner was. He was a good guy. This is who Andrew Romero was. He was not a good guy.
Right.
And trying to keep that going from the start to the finish. But I make notes of every juror that's picked. I know who they are when we get the seating chart. So I know when I'm making my closing argument, if I'm talking to the dentist, or if I'm talking to the nurse, or if I'm talking to the person whose brother was murdered 3 years ago. I know who I'm talking to, every person up there. Basically, I kept track of that, and I took notes during jury selection. So I'm talking to every individual person, trying to relate to all of them with whatever points I can from the evidence.
No, I didn't realize that there was actually a get to know you with the jury, and you're actually tailor making your argument.
If you're smart,
to the person, not the jury, the person.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Every state's different. New Mexico, we're lucky we get to question the jury. We have so many what we call excusals for any reason. We don't have to give a reason. And of course, if someone has a bias, like if someone was related to the victim, say, well, obviously that person can't be on the jury.
Right.
And neither side has to use their excusals. Otherwise, we only get 3, or if it's a homicide, 5 excusals for the state, and they get, I think, 10. So it's but jury, that's a whole nother topic.
Right.
But jury selection, you're doing more than just, you're starting the theme of your case. You're starting that, and you hammer that in, and then when you come back, you say, remember in jury selection when I asked Mr. Johnson about whether he would do this or that? Remember that? Remember when we talked about that? Oh yeah. And then you just feed it all the way through.
Remember, you tie it back, kind of like a story or a TV show or something to catch people's attention. That was my point earlier. You almost have to tailor it to. Also, people have a different mindset these days. They want to be entertained at all parts of life, right?
They do. We do. Yeah.
So
I'm sorry.
real quick, I'm sorry.
Go for it.
I found, I'm pretty sure this is what I was talking about as far as when you read in deliberate intent. Do you mind if we play that?
No, not at all.
Okay, let me share
Love
my
that.
screen again.
Love that. Action shot. We got actual footage here, guys.
I mean, Barb, I was so impressed. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
It was
So impressed. So give me just, am I sharing now? Tell me
No.
if I'm,
There you go.
All right, and
Deliberate intent.
can we hear it?
Deliberate intention. I'm going to read this. Deliberate intention refers to the state of mind of the defendant. A deliberate intention may be inferred from all of the facts and circumstances of the killing. The word deliberate means arrived at or determined upon as a result of careful thought and the weighing of the consideration for and against the proposed course of action. A calculated judgment and decision may be arrived at in a short period of time. A mere considered rash impulse, even though it includes an intent to kill, is not a deliberate intention to kill. To constitute a deliberate killing, the slayer must weigh and consider the question of killing and his reasons against that. The reason I read that, not that you can't read it yourself, deliberate intent can be formed in less than the time it took me to read that instruction. It doesn't require an elaborate plan, a blueprint, where you sit and plot what you're going to do. That's not it. Deliberate intent. Don't worry, I'm not going to point this at you. I learned a long time ago not to do that. But remember what Steve Gaddis said? Semi-automatic. You have to pull the trigger every time. Conscious thought. Boom, 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 boom. Every time he pulled that trigger, conscious thought. A pause before the final shot. Several witnesses said they heard the shot. Boom, 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 boom. Deliberate.
Okay, that was just amazing. By the way, sorry.
Yeah, I got chills listening to that.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to use
And
the
you,
act-
you may not think it looks like a movie, but
Yeah.
it kind of did.
Shortly, it wasn't that part, but going forward, you had talked about how Officer Benner he was there to be a witness, based on the evidence, and you had grabbed. I would assume I couldn't tell by the video. It looked like maybe the shell casings or maybe the projectiles. Shortly after that, the defense had wanted to go to the bench. What? Okay, so they mute that. What do you remember what was said at that point? Or I didn't. I guess I didn't realize that they could be like you could object during a closing argument, and I thought that was very interesting. But do you kind of remember what the objection was there, or why you had to approach the bench at that point?
Yeah, I watched it yesterday just to refresh my memory, and I, for the life of me, cannot remember. The only thing I can think is maybe the rounds that were up there were not the actual rounds that came.
Oh, okay.
I mean, which sounds like a stupid thing to object to, but sometimes defense attorneys will do that just to kind of break your flow.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
You went right back though.
It's
I mean,
called
you were
icing
just
the
like,
kicker,
yes.
right? You're icing the kicker.
Yes. You went right back though. I mean, you were just like, here's why. And I mean, you showed his uniform with the holes. It was just, it was amazing. I mean, I understand based on that why the jury decided the way they did. And the whole trial, obviously, it went very well. But I noticed also, shoot.
It was also like it was. You were soft when you had to be, and then you were, when you're very deliberate when you went to go get the gun, and you're like, "Don't worry, I'm not going to shoot you." Like,
Yeah,
I learned that a long time ago. You established, you're like, I've been doing this a long time. Like, trust, like, none of it was like unbelievable. It's like I believe you. You know how to use a firearm. I now believe that you know what you're talking about. It's just like these little anchors in truth.
yeah, I also loved how you would go over and point at him and go, he did this. He did this. You know what I mean? And that was very impactful for me watching it. Like, no, I'm not letting you off the hook. I'm telling you, I know you did this, and I'm going to make, make everybody else believe this.
Connect
Well,
them. You're connecting the dots.
he,
That's it.
he was a hothead. Okay. I
Mhm.
mean, first of all, I learned that pointing thing from my very first mentor, because it drives them crazy. But in this particular case, I admit I was hoping to stimulate a reaction, because if you look in the videos and you see the two gentlemen behind him that were chomping on gum the whole time, I don't know why. It's just, but
They always went to them when they paused or muted the video.
but he had a shock device on his ankle and on his wrist. So if he had tried to act up or try to attack anybody, they could shock him. So
I didn't know that was a thing.
They have that for the dogs. Are you serious?
I was trying so hard to get a reaction.
That is awesome. I would love to shock
And-
that guy.
And this is him in the trial.
Who had that remote
smirking.
control?
That was
Yeah.
sentencing, actually.
Yeah,
Sentencing you can tell, because in a trial you can't dress them in their jail clothes because that would be too prejudicial. Boo-hoo. So
Mhm.
Oh, we
that's
don't want everybody getting the wrong idea.
Right?
they're being, it's too late at that point. Nobody cares.
Right. I mean, sometimes they come in with shackles. What would be the difference there? They come in like the wrist and the waist shackles.
Because he has a history. He had, even while he was in prison. I'm trying to remember the sequence of things, but he was being held in the Department of Corrections. I think it might have been on a parole or a probation violation. So he was being held at the penitentiary, Department of Corrections, and he was already, I mean, he was causing trouble. He had tried to escape. I mean, he was just already a mess.
No question.
They already had him under. In fact, that was one of the issues they raised on appeal, and were like, hey, that's your client's fault. That's just because he can't behave. I mean, they have security responsibilities, so.
We
Go
both took the question breath. Go for
I
it.
know. Go ahead.
Ladies first. No, ladies first.
No, one of the pieces of evidence was a phone call from jail
Oh,
that
yeah.
he had, and he admitted that he did it. Yet the defense tried to put that under the rug, like, he didn't mean it that way. He was just asking to see if Tabitha was okay. No, he wasn't. He was like, ugh. He was very flippant, like, ugh, why are we still talking about this? I'm over it. And he fucking totally admitted it.
Yeah. I mean, there's only two. That's why, I mean, their whole defense was just strange, because they settled on an identity defense, a little bit intoxication, but mostly identity.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well,
what they forgot, did you listen to the rebuttal?
uh-huh.
What they forgot is that stupid co-defense attorney admitted in her opening statement that he was with her.
Nice one.
Yeah, like what?
You should have seen her face. She looked at her co-counsel and she went, oh, did I say that? And she's like, yes.
That's it. Bring the shackles. It's over. It's over.
I don't know. But
And I think that's what Rose meant. Like that, or was it? It was a Rose or yourself. You're like, is that slam dunk moment? You're like, boom.
Yeah,
you got
exactly.
it. That's it. That's the one. That's the smoking gun, right?
Yes.
I'm superstitious, I guess. I never want to think that. I will say, we were a little worried about that key.
Right.
Key. And it's just like, it's hard to explain, but when you're in sometimes you get kind of like tunnel vision, and you're just so focused on a certain thing that you kind of miss the peripheral things. So the defense was bringing up all, and the case, the criminal investigator on the stand, nice guy. God, he already retired. Love that guy. But he was like, I don't remember collecting that key. I was like, God damn. You collect the key, Agent Chavez. Did you not?
Yes.
Well, I thought, let me see. Well, I don't see it notated in my report. Oh, and the defense is over.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mhm.
we broke for the day, and I told my two co-counsels, like, I know I saw that fucking key somewhere. I know I saw it. I went through everything, and it was in the material. The reason that Agent Chavez didn't have it in his report is because it was in another officer's report who actually did the inventory of the shit that they took off of him.
Oh,
Mm.
But
okay.
guess what? There's the picture of the key, and it was found in his pocket. Oh,
Oh my God!
Well,
Really? Nobody patted the dude down.
they
Good
even kind
Lord.
of honed in on that in their closing, like, oh, it wasn't even put into evidence until October. Yeah.
If I was on the other side, I'd try to throw whatever wrench I could and little bombs if I can, just to derail.
you know what? Like Judge Eichwald pointed out in his sentencing, sometimes judges give them more than you think they should because they want to protect the case from appeal.
Sure.
So yeah, he gave him a lot because
Mhm.
that part of his statement that was suppressed, and the state police officer that took his statement felt really bad about it. And I told him, I was like, Steve, sometimes in the law, that is one area of the law that honestly the judge could have ruled either way and he would have been upheld on appeal, because it's just one of those gray areas. It just kind of depends on how the judge looks at things. So you didn't do anything wrong, but then I did use it as a teaching moment. However, next time you might
want to do that. So
Yeah.
because of blind
When
spots,
they say-
right?
I might want an attorney. You might want to follow up on that a little bit.
Mhm.
Is there a fear ever during like a trial like this, being so, you think that's cut and dry, like, okay, this guy's guilty. Has there ever been a moment where it could go the other way and they could just say, you know what,
Oh,
release him? He's not, he's innocent.
every
Has,
trial, Sam. Every trial. And that's what sometimes victims and family members don't understand. Yeah, if you look at everything from our perspective, it looks like an overwhelming case.
Yeah.
But you have to understand
There will be no defense, right?
the jury is supposed to, by definition, be people who know nothing about the case. Don't know you, don't know them. They're going to listen to both sides. So even though we may think it's an overwhelming case, you have to understand that they're going to hear another version. It could go either way.
Or the
So,
media could taint it, or the media can spin it in a way where
yeah.
everyone kind of knows about it. I guess, and maybe has it ever happened to you in your? I know this one got a little bit tainted. Like they tried to taint it a little bit, but have you seen the media ever say like, "Wait a minute, that's not true. The news is totally reporting something wrong."
No, I mean, the news gets it wrong a lot.
It's a weapon, yeah, of course.
However, at least in New Mexico, lawyers, including defense lawyers, supposedly, and prosecutors, we have ethical obligations about how much we can say, to the media before a trial. So basically, we're not supposed to say anything that could prejudice a potential juror. So, in other words, an example of something a really stupid prosecutor did, she told a local paper about an upcoming trial. I don't know why we're going to trial. We got DNA evidence against him. Nope, you can't do that.
You said
Right.
that. Wow. Done.
wow.
Now, defense attorneys violate this all the time,
Of
but
course they do.
Really?
they're never held to account. But I don't, I tell my prosecutors, I don't care about defense attorneys. I care about you and us and how we act as professionals. And we're going to be professional and ethical. I don't care what the defense is doing. I don't care what the district attorney's office down the street is doing. I only care about what we're doing and about what you're doing.
Has there ever been a case that you've done that has really hit home, and to the point where that's one case that you've had trouble even sleeping, and it's a case that will always stand with you in your career, that you'll always go back and remember? Is there ever been a case like that you've ever had?
Well, certainly Officer Benner's case. There's also a case when I was in Santa Fe. There was an individual who had he had molested all of his kids, starting with his son at age 6. And then the next girl, when she got to be, that age, about 6, about 3 years later. And then finally the baby 2 years later after that. The sad thing is he had custody because the mom was a drug abuser. So she had lost custody of the kids to him, except she had weekend visits. So on one of the weekend visits, the littlest girl, who was 8 at the time, her little vagina was hurting. So the mom looks at it, it's red, takes her to the doctor. The doctor does some tests. She had an SDI. She had pelvic inflammatory disease, and she's 8. Now, if an adult gets pelvic inflammatory disease, it could be caused by other things. But when an 8-year-old gets PED, there's only one reason. So, the police, obviously, when the doctors called, the appropriate authorities, they started the investigation. And I still remember when the detective called me and he's like, well, how am I going to prove? I said, well, I mean, you're going to have to interview the 15-year-old boy, because the son was 15 already, and let him know, because I know the reason he doesn't want to talk, because he was abusing his sisters too, because his dad made him.
I was about to ask that question.
He's
At that point,
he's not in trouble. But let's just put it this way. He did every sexual thing you can imagine to every child he had. And he had them do every sexual thing imaginable to himself and to each other. That's what he did.
you really wanted to ask this question, Rose? There you go. Bless.
I did get a sort of half-ass confession from him. I wanted him to go to trial so bad, but he pled guilty. Damn him. But I remember what the defense attorney during docket call, he came over and he's like, well, I was like, I'm not giving you a plea offer in this case. I told you from day one. Nope. I don't even need to put the kids on. I got so much evidence against them. Nope.
Wow.
Yeah, that might have said, you know what, I'm gonna go with the other thing.
So he went over and talked to him. And then I see him coming back, because they're over in the jury box. You can see him, and he comes back, and I can still see the defendant sitting there. And poor defense attorney goes, oh, God, he wants to go to trial. And I'm like, really? You're kidding. And I'm looking right at that motherfucker. And he ended up pleading guilty to everything. I really wanted to go to trial on that son of a bitch.
How much did he get for something like that, as opposed to what he would have gotten at trial?
Oh, the judges will tell you there's no difference, because everybody has a right to exercise their constitutional right of requesting a jury trial. So they're not penalized for that.
Right.
But they do reward people for taking early responsibility. Mm-hmm. That case was so bad, I don't know. The judge sentenced him to 200 years, but the math didn't work out. So I had to change it to 199 years. So.
Oh, okay. Well,
that poses a question. AC and I were kind of talking about that
right before he came on.
Yeah, in the Romero case,
Mm-hmm.
During the sentencing, you had said, you'd said a lot of things, but you said there's 3 reasons that people go to jail or are punished. One, for reform. That's not happening. He's proven he that's not going to happen. The second one for I can't
punishment?
think of the word. No, it was the third one was for punishment. It was the second one for retribution. Yeah, for the family to,
Mm-hmm.
And then this one, he needs to be. You're making an example,
like
right?
social.
You're gonna
commentary.
By having him go to jail for life plus 20 and a half years minus 1 day. Why minus 1 day? How does that work? I don't understand. Why is it that way?
Because one of his crimes was a misdemeanor, and misdemeanors in New Mexico, you can only be sentenced to 364 days. It's in
Oh,
our laws. I
that's
think
odd.
the concealing identity was a misdemeanor. I think that's why.
Right.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Well, just
Not-
like you said, the math, 199 years for the one guy. Well, why?
Yeah, and I back in even when I don't know Miami, I read of somebody who was like got 4 consecutive life sentences. We actually kind of knew the guy. We're like, whoa, it's the first time I ever heard about consecutive life sentences.
Yeah.
And it always made me think like, all right, they must they're doing a social commentary. They're deterring. They're putting up a fence
Yes.
saying, hey, you can
Yeah.
get 200 years. We don't give a flying fuck who you are. You know, we're going to give you this much. In the afterlife, you're going to have to go to jail. You're going to be born again and go back to prison.
And in this case, it was particularly galling. At least I wanted to make that impression on the community, because these people weren't from Sandoval County. They weren't from Rio Rancho. They were from Albuquerque. They got hot in Albuquerque, and they had just committed an armed robbery there. So they came to Rio Rancho until the heat died down in Albuquerque to commit another crime here. It's like part of your trash coming to out. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
galling.
Totally.
People, no, if you come here, motherfucker, you're going to go for a very fucking long time, and you're not going to get a plea deal. And I don't care who you
Right.
are.
It's exactly what I wanted to
I
do.
mean, it was clear from the beginning. We told the defense attorney, don't even insult us with asking for a plea, because you're not going to get a plea. Because it's not,
Right.
On this on
ahead.
this case that you did, my question is, how did you? I mean, with him smirking and laughing and just taking this as a joke, how did you not? I mean, I would have wanted to just smack the living shit
Just
out
a
of
whole
him. You know what
career
I
and
mean?
stuff.
Like,
yeah.
you know, like how do you hold your how do you hold I guess I want to say how do you compose without taking that, I would have
Yeah.
because I mean I would have been I would have been totally different. I would have smacked the shit out of him and like, you know what
But
you
that's the
just
last day you're a
did?
lawyer and the last day you get to help people.
Right? But I
But
mean, look, but his
well,
look in his face, I pissed me off.
the way I look, here's the way I look at it. As hard as it is for me, Julie, his widow, and his sons, and his colleagues were sitting there, and if they can freaking take it, I can fucking take it.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
Julie was just
It's why Superman doesn't rip people apart. It's
amazing. Yeah,
because
she just
it's a good. It's a overall good.
so stoic.
I would I that was kind of one of those questions. Do like in this situation, like a murder trial, it had to have been so hard for her to sit there and see the pictures of her husband laying there and watch that motherfucker smirk. I mean, I don't think if something like that happened to Dave, I'd probably be going to jail for killing his murder. You know what I mean? I don't know how she sat there. Is that typical of family to sit through the trial, or does it just depend?
It just depends. Every family's different, but Julie had a lot of support. I mean, in addition to our victim advocate who was there with her the whole time, the police officer that you can kind of see sitting next to her, she was, she was a Rio Rancho police officer that was just really good friends with both of them. And their sons were there, and she had a lot of support. Plus, I always make sure when I knew those kinds of pictures were coming up,
Mhm.
I told the victim advocate so they could warn Julie and the other family members, like the autopsy slides
Right.
happen. And sometimes she could stay and sometimes she had to get up and leave. And either way was fine.
Right. Um, Watching her at the sentencing, I was in tears.
Yeah.
It was
That was hard. That was
heart-wrenching.
really hard to watch. It was so hard to watch. And just to see him smirking and laughing and
Even at
just
that moment, yeah.
At that moment, but think about in 5 minutes, he's going to be in several rings deeper than hell forever.
Yeah,
And
but I
with
don't think
no
he
possibility
cared.
of ever, he's going to care. I promise you. He's gonna get back and be like, "Yeah, motherfucker," and then he's gonna go like this forever, forever. And then other men are gonna watch him do that, and other men are not gonna be not kind to him forever. He's gonna eat a bologna sandwich with cheese forever. He's going to have the most horrible backache forever. Do I think that he should deserve to be strung up and flayed? Maybe, but that's a bit un-American for the moment. So
one of the
I'll go with
things
what Barbara does. You know,
yeah, one of the things they said is there had been a few cop killings in your area at that point, and it brought up the talk of the death penalty again, because there were so many, just to as a deterrent. Hey, if you do that, if you murder. I thought that was interesting. But Barbara, one of the things as I was watching his wife Julie, correct,
Mhm.
speaking, for me, if I was in that courtroom, I would have been bawling. How do you have you cried in court? How do you keep your emotions in check? Because I don't think I could.
Yeah,
I
I'm right there.
I don't know. I've almost lost it a few times during closings and rebuttals. I've almost lost it a couple of times during sentencings, but I don't know. I just not practice. I want to say you get numb to it, because if you get numb to it, then it's probably time for you to do something else.
Right.
I mean, you protect and serve. You protect people
Yeah.
from these people. What you're trying to do is like be bigger than anyone else in the room and help these people more than any normal people could by
And
keeping your emotions in check, right?
right. And I guess I just kind of go back to what I said before. I'm like, I what I feel is nothing compared to what they're going through right now. And if they can go through this and be strong, then I damn sure can.
And then who else is going to do this? If you don't just hunker down and do what you have to do, it's going to be ugly right now, but later on, the
Yeah.
retribution's sweeter, right?
Yep.
Ugly.
Yep.
Oh, now we're quiet. No,
Okay.
now no one has
Sorry.
questions.
I was just kind of taking it in. I
Yeah, me
No,
too.
apologize.
it's just
I was expecting
I
rapid
was
fire.
like, I was taking it in, and it just kept flashing back in my head. His smirk, his laughing, and just seeing his wife sit there and know that she just lost her husband to this piece of shit. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
It happens more than we could possibly imagine, and this person here has seen it more than we can possibly imagine. So, and it takes a big person to be able to do that, swallow all that, and go out there and be the best you can be for the family and advocate for the victim as much as possible, right?
Yeah. Well, like I've always said, and I mean it sincerely, it really was my sincere honor and privilege to be able to prosecute the case and help bring some measure of justice to Nigel's family, his colleagues, the community.
Absolutely.
absolutely.
And you did it justice. I mean, you absolutely did. Again,
You're great.
yeah.
What was the
You say it's not like on TV, but actually, it you were better. You know what I mean? It was, I don't know. It was so
If
neat.
anybody's ever watched court TV, it was fucking awesome. But it was
well, we
good.
have
Like,
that now because we were never able to see court. OJ Simpson, maybe we were able to see court. It was maybe the first time I saw court. But
Maybe.
other than that, you saw people in front of Congress. You never saw people like testifying or getting sentenced before. Court TV changed the game. Now we're like in it. We're looking at trials now.
Real
well,
quick,
yeah,
let's have a shot.
Right.
That was a lot of
Yes.
heavy stuff. Barb, if you don't want to do a shot, just take a drink. But we didn't do our inaugural like when we get on the show. Let's just take a moment.
Didn't we? No? Okay.
Go ahead.
Let's do it.
do it. Cheers.
All right, cheers.
Cheers.
So Dave typed in a question, Barb. He
Your
says,
Our Dave?
yeah, yes,
Our Dave.
your brother, your little brother. He says, at what point in your life did you decide that your life career was going to be prosecuting pieces of shit and defending people that might not be able to have a voice? That's a great question, Dave.
Not until I started my first job in Truth or Consequences. And I think it was during I think it was my first jury trial. I know for sure it was my first dead baby case.
Oh, wow.
That fired you up?
I was standing up there talking to the jury, and I knew at that point that that was what I was supposed to do. So I guess in Truth or Consequences during that cut, I don't remember the name, but I remember the baby's name was Crystal.
Mm.
Things you just don't forget.
Oh, absolutely.
There you go. That's to Rose's
But
point. That's something that she'll always remember something like that really quick.
when I was in law school,
Yeah.
I didn't have a clue. I liked employment law and labor law. So that's kind of where I was leaning. And then Ricardo and I and the kids had moved down to New Mexico, and we were living in Roswell, and I was teaching at a military academy until I got the results of the bar. So then I passed the bar, and I answered an ad in the paper, and I'm like, well, I'll do this until something better comes along.
How many years have you been doing this?
Okay, so since 1996, yeah, whatever that is.
Almost 30 years.
Yeah,
28 years. That's amazing.
yeah, a long time. But
Wow. I think
went
I
fa-
would have given up on my first case.
I mean,
Seriously.
it's rewarding. I mean, it's hard when cases don't go the way you want them to, especially if you have a case that involves a victim or, family of a victim. Because like we talked about earlier, they hear, what you hear, they know your side of the case. They hear you arguing their case and they're like, yes, that was amazing. We're going to get a conviction for sure. And it doesn't always happen, and so you kind of carry the weight of the victims and the family's expectations. But I have found, and I preach this to my new prosecutors, if you establish a relationship with those people from the very beginning, explain the process, explain what you can do and what you can't do, what you can guarantee and what you can't guarantee. I found that they're way better off no matter what the outcome of the trial is. Are they disappointed if it's a not guilty? Sure they are, but they're not wrecked. They understand. They're still grateful for the effort and blah, blah, blah. And they go on with their lives. So, because there's just too many things we can't control. I can't control the jury or what they're thinking or the judge and his or her rulings or, what evidence they let in. How the witnesses are going to testify, the cops that forget to look at their report until they get to stand. Can I look at my report? It's like, well, it's certainly been nice to have done it before you got here, but
Certainly.
why not? So, I mean, there's just
I lo-
too much out of our control, and and I recognize that, and I just try to emphasize that to my staff as well.
I love what Dave said here. I'm so proud of who you are and what you do. I love that as a brother. That's awesome.
Thank you, little brother.
I love
He
I love that.
absolutely is.
Okay.
I
so,
love that.
so I'm going to throw a little grenade here because it's such a love fest. We're going to have to argue about something. You know me. Not argue, but just get your perspective on something a little ugly.
I was talking about AC.
Hi,
Dave
Dave.
said.
Hi, Dave. Thank you. How does your process change? How do you approach things? How do you look at it? And how different is it when you, and if you have ever, I don't know if this is something that you've ever come across, a police officer, one of your own, is the one that's doing
The misconduct.
the crime.
Yeah, if it's an officer that's in my district, I usually, and they're accused or suspected of committing a crime, I usually hire a special prosecutor, somebody that's not affiliated with the with the office, to review the case and do whatever needs to be done. And I have nothing to do with it from there. There's kind of two schools of thought on that. Now, there are some jurisdictions in the United States who believe that, hey, if it's a crime that occurs in my jurisdiction, even if it's one of our own, I will prosecute it. That's my job. That's my duty. I'll be completely transparent, whatever I decide. Okay.
Sure.
However, pretty much universally in this state, all of the district attorneys kind of agree that it's not a good idea to screen those cases yourself. We've been trying to talk our attorney general into taking on the cases because that would be the most logical body to do it. That hasn't happened yet.
And then disseminate it to other prosecutors, you mean, or him actually do it, or her?
Our attorney general has prosecutors. He has a special prosecution unit, and they can do cases where if districts have a conflict or whatever. I have attorneys who are on contract with me. They're private attorneys, but they have criminal law experience. And when I get a case like that, I just send it to them. They review it and make whatever decision they make, and I have nothing to do with the process. Some district attorneys will try to send it to a different district attorney. And I don't like doing that. And the reason is, it's like, well, if you're sending it to another district attorney, if I was a member of the public, I would be going, well,
you're sending him to another part of the club, right?
You're all in the same club.
Right. Yeah. Like, you don't, oh, you're not going to cover for this officer over the, of course.
Right. So I don't do that. And I don't accept them either from other agencies, but that's the way that we handle them. And
makes sense.
Yeah, it's worked out pretty well. We don't get a lot of them, as many as Albuquerque, thank God, but we have now and then, we get our share.
Yeah. So that really weighed on me because I wanted to know, just that. Mm-hmm. Is it a reshuffling or is it just complete outsourcing to the private sector, which is
it's complete. I mean, I have attorneys who are on contract with me to accept cases for, if there's a conflict. I mean, there's other types of conflict. For example, I had one of my investigators that was arrested for a domestic violence, and obviously,
oh goodness,
we're not going to prosecute that case. So that
right.
I had to go to a different, and that one I just asked a different district attorney's office to look at, because obviously I can't be unbiased to look at that kind of
On this case with the police officer, the attorney that was defending this person, Andrew, did you get a chance to talk to the attorney? Did you ever has any of these attorneys ever felt like, what, they don't want to defend them, but they have to? Have you ever came across somebody like that it's just because that's their job and they have to defend somebody? They know that they're guilty.
That's a good question. Most defense attorneys that I know that are what I would consider, straightforward, ethical, straight, that kind of thing that I would trust. Most of them will tell you, if you ask them, do you believe that your clients are innocent? And what they will say is, I'm pretty sure the vast majority of my clients are guilty, because think about it. If they weren't, wouldn't there be something really fucked up about the system?
Yeah.
Right.
If most of
Next question is the system really fucked up?
If your clients really didn't do it, then there's really something really wrong going on. So most of them will tell you that the way they look at it is they're making sure that I do my job, period.
Has any of them ever approached you afterwards and said, you know what, you did a great job, thank you for locking them up, thank you for putting them away, even though they're the defense, even they're on the other side, has any of them ever came up and said, you know what, thank you for
I had a case in Santa Fe once. It was child molestation case, and it was against the defense attorney. We win against each other all the time. He seemed like he was always defending those idiots. And his wife was an attorney. she's a judge now. They're divorced now, but we got a guilty verdict. I went into the courthouse and she was coming down the stairs and she looked at me and she's like, "Good job. Dan was so mad. I loved it."
I love losing that case.
Good, yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's there are some what we call true believers, and those are the ones that honestly really believe that all their clients are freaking innocent.
That's
But
insane.
the majority of really good, competent, professional defense attorneys I know will tell you they recognize that most of their clients are guilty. They're just doing their part to make sure the system works like it's supposed to. Like the state produces the evidence, like the rights aren't violated and that sort of thing.
So to piggyback on that, with those defense attorneys that believe their clients are innocent, are they kind of like the grimy, like slimy ones that you're like, I don't want to go up against because you're gonna not do things the way you probably should? I mean, are there? I would assume that you've come across some, not so ethical people,
Yeah.
correct?
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember there was a defense attorney in Santa Fe, and she well, I will give you too much information. Let's just say that she and I went against each other a lot.
Okay.
And she was a true believer.
Uh-huh.
And we did the child molestation, child abuse cases. So she was a true believer of these molesters.
Ugh.
And her husband, who also worked in the same public defender's office, however, he was not a true believer. He was working there because it was a freaking job. He thought most of the people were guilty and needed to go to jail forthwith. So one time we were waiting for our cases to be called, and I told him, I was like, you know what, Damien, she's looking I'm kind of worried about her. She's got so many cases coming up. I think I'm kind of worried about her. And he's like, well, I told her it's not my fault all your clients are innocent.
I mean, of course, I didn't even know that existed. And of course, there's something called a true believer lawyer that believes everything. Of course, there are people who take things literally. There has to be that.
But yeah, I did. We went up against each other a few times, and I never thought she was doing anything to deliberately violate anybody's rights. She was a very zealous advocate, and because she had that true believer mentality.
Sure.
Like, the victims are always lying. The state's always going to try
She's
to
a professional victim blamer.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was just like, okay. I mean, it's one of those things.
Do you find on the other side, it's kind of hard too, like when you're a prosecutor and, you have a hammer, isn't everything looking like a nail? Like you kind of also on the other side, maybe, the same way, we might be looking at everyone to be prosecuted because you find that?
But actually, in my office, we're pretty big on diversion. We have a really vigorous pre-prosecution diversion program, and that's run by my office. And it's someone who's a first-time nonviolent offender. We take them completely out of the criminal justice system. We put them through. I have someone from my office that supervises them. It's kind of like being on probation through us, but whatever kind of services they need. If they need to get their high school diploma or GED, we help them with that. If they need to know how to manage their finances, we help them with that. If they need to get health care, we help them with that to show them how to do that. And if they complete all the requirements, then whatever felony case they had goes away like it never existed. So I try to also keep in mind that we have pretty limited resources. If you ever hear somebody say the expansive, limited resources of the state, that's baloney. We do not have unlimited resources. So I try very hard for philosophical reasons, but also for practical logistical reasons to spend the majority of my resources and time. My attorneys are spent on the repeat offenders, the violent offenders, the offenders who victimize women, children, elderly, disabled, animals, any vulnerable group. And then we have the diversion programs. And then of course there's people that are going to fall in between, and we try to work with the defense attorneys to come up with something that's reasonable. So no, I would say I can't agree with you that I see everybody as somebody to prosecute. As a matter of fact, there's a saying amongst prosecutors that we as prosecutors exonerate more people in 1 year than any defense attorney or criminal defense attorney will do in their entire career. And that's because we screen out so many cases because of not enough evidence, because of constitutional violations.
Mhm.
So
Certainly, and I wasn't saying that you did. That was a good way to pose the question, because we always think about like how many get off, but we never think about how many get off on the other side as well, and what ladder you have to climb to get to your level.
Sure, it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love hearing that you have that diversion program in place to help people who probably don't need to go to jail. You know what I mean? I think it's a really great thing. I mean, I don't think people realize that there's a lot of those things in place. So, Tiffy had actually written a question and said, "Are there lawyers that enjoy getting guilty, difficult cases off too?" Meaning, like defense attorneys that enjoy getting,
Yeah, that's a good question. On the other side, it's like we got another scumbag runs the streets,
even though they know they're guilty. I did my job and got them. I got a not guilty.
Yeah,
verdict.
I know, understand the question, and I mean, I'm sure there are, but I mean, it's like anything else in life. You get a reputation. Everybody knows who those attorneys are.
Those are the slimy ones, right? Those are the ones who are like, I'll take your case.
Well,
I'll get you off.
I had a jury selection once with one of those attorneys, and the defense attorney asked, what was his actual question? Whether if they had seen him on TV, and whether he was trying to get across, he's so special, and and would they hold that against his client? And a couple of people raised their hands and said, "Yeah, I've seen you on TV, and yeah, I would hold it against your client."
Yeah, I've seen you, and you're slimy, and I don't like you.
There was a guy here in Nebraska that kind of had that reputation.
We took a recess and everything, and he's like, "Well, you're not." It was like, no.
Your local Saul Goodman.
Go out and talk to him what you want. That's you're famous and all high and mighty. Now you're paying the price for it.
Seriously,
you have a patient for getting people off. She said that, I don't know, but it's like.
But it seems to be lucrative, because you have the late Robert Kardashian. You had the whole OJ crew, and of course we have Dershowitz and everybody who kind of makes a name for like, you have the hardest time. Do you have the craziest legal problem? I'll be there in your corner.
Well,
and and they almost relish like, you're coming at him. You're coming. I'm gonna go. And then people just flock there. It's always the same guys.
Well, I'll tell you, Rose and AC, we did the lover stalker killer. We deep dived into that. The story here from Omaha, and he's since passed, but James Martin Davis. Here in Omaha,
Right.
he defended the gal that was the stalker and the killer, and he had a huge reputation of being like, I'll take the grimiest, criminals, and I'll get them all. He gave me the creeps. And to be fair, I met him in real life because of my ex, who had shot a guy at Walgreens. It was being robbed. It was self-defense. So they didn't prosecute. However, he didn't have a concealed carry or whatever, but he went to James Martin Davis to help get him off. I don't know, but he had that reputation.
Of course it's going to be him, like who else is going to do it?
Yeah. It was just like, okay. And when I saw when we did the lover stalker killer, I was like, of course. Yeah, I know. You know what I mean? He did have that reputation of, person who makes your skin crawl. Like, how do you do this? How do you live with yourself? I don't
Yeah.
know.
And I mean, I think that there probably, I'm sure there are defense attorneys out there, and I probably know a few, but most defense attorneys really, they're just, I see this, there are a lot of attorneys who have been prosecutors and defense attorneys and back and forth.
Hmm.
I can't do that.
I get it.
I'm prosecutor. I cannot be a defense attorney, but I understand if you can. There are some people who can do that. But by the same token, I've noticed there are differences between career defense attorneys and career prosecutors. Because I hired someone who had been a public defender his whole career,
Mm.
and he was fired by the public defenders, and I know why, but that's another story. And he's retired now. But anyway, so I hired him, but it's funny because after the first month, you know what he said?
Hmm.
Never realized you guys work so hard. It's like, yeah,
Oh, wow.
we do work hard.
Yeah.
Just poke holes in
Right.
face,
I got to find the thing. You just poke holes in the thing, but I got to get the thing.
throw darts at it. But yeah, but I have to say, most defense attorneys that I've met and dealt with have been professionals, and they're just doing their job and making sure I do my job.
And that kind of
On
restores my faith in humanity, to be honest. You know what I mean?
right.
I think for me, I've always thought of a defense attorney as kind of a grimy person. You know what I mean? Like, you know, but again, they do have a job, and it is to keep everything equal and make sure that the prosecution does everything. Again, I think that I like the checks and balances of it. And unfortunately, I think we all have a different view of that defense attorney, but and I'm glad to know that it's not that way for the majority of the time, and especially in your experience.
And you know what? It's like it's just like cops. Are all cops great? No, I don't know. There's some shithead cops. There's some
Yeah,
shit prosecutors. There's some, it's just like every profession has its duds, right? But the majority, I just, and and you know what's kind of funny, at least in my experience in this, the defense attorneys who are the ones who give everybody a hard time and are a pain in the ass, and the judges don't like them, and even the defense bar doesn't like them. They're just like, these guys are idiots. Why are they in my courtroom?
right.
On this case, on this particular case, was there anything that you were, you know what, this jury selection this person shouldn't be there, or this shouldn't be in my courtroom? Did you ever come across something like that in this case that you had with the police officer? Because looking at the videos and everybody that's listening, there you can find these videos on YouTube.
The whole trial is
Um,
on YouTube.
the whole
Yeah.
trial, yeah, and you can go back and watch it. On this particular case, in any point did you go, you know what, that person shouldn't be there? Because I didn't see if his family was there. I didn't see that because I saw at one point at the end, uh, I didn't see anybody on his side. Was there anything like that?
Um, not that I recall, but you have to remember that, or understand that, like when I'm in trial, and most trial attorneys are the same way. When I'm in trial, I really don't know what's happening behind me. I
Okay.
really don't. That's why people have said before, well, it makes you nervous if I come in during your closing arguments. I don't even fucking notice you. I don't. I don't even know
You're
that.
on. You're performing. You're doing your thing.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
I don't. I wouldn't have noticed anything like that. So I don't know.
The reason she's so good
That's good
is
to
that is
know.
because
But that's good to know because
Yeah.
we sit there and we look at this as an outsider looking in. We're wondering like, hey, did you see that person came in? Did you see that we're as an outsider looking in, we think that a lot of us assume that you're seeing somebody come in, or if the family was there, or if the
Right.
father and the mom were there. So we
Sure.
assume that, but if you don't see it, like now that makes a lot of sense. I never came across my mind like that.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of going back to the trial, the defense really tried to discredit Tabitha.
Yeah.
I loved how when you, especially in your closing argument, went, listen, yes, did she get a deal? Of course. However, she's not off scot-free. She is going to jail. Also, she to get this deal has to tell the absolute truth, otherwise she doesn't get it. You even at one point said, would it be better if she said, yes, this is what happened, he planned to kill a cop that day, I woke up this morning and said, I want to kill a cop today. But that's not what she said. She even admitted on scene, yeah, that wasn't true, I'm going to tell you the truth. They did try to discredit her, but I mean, didn't they call her? Wasn't it their witness initially?
No.
Kind of, no, or
Those kinds of witnesses are always interesting because we had a lot of pretrial motions where, because obviously they had a lot of other crimes in Albuquerque that we weren't allowed to talk about. Fine.
right? Okay, yeah,
But when she got on the stand, the defense attorney started talk, about this and that, and so my co-counsel Ron started cross-examining. But weren't you committing those robberies with so and so? Oh, objection! I said, what the hell? He opened the door.
yeah. If he says it, you
Yeah.
can go with it, right?
You said the thing. I'm just saying. Did you say that?
Why I was allowed to say, yeah, she was committing armed robberies with him.
Yeah.
Why didn't? So here's the question: why didn't in your thought on this? Why didn't the judge wanted to bring in his other criminal histories with this particular case, like add it all together? Because I heard that he wanted to separate everything. Like this was just one case. He had other multiple things. Why didn't he wanted to put together? Why wasn't all his cases put together?
You mean during the trial or for sentencing?
Yeah, for both.
Okay, well, for sentencing, I mean, for the trial, he didn't have any other cases in Sandoval County. He had a bunch of cases still pending in Albuquerque. And as a matter of fact, not with him, because we didn't make any deals with him, but with Tabitha, we made, part of our deal with her was with the district attorney's office in Albuquerque not to pursue certain armed robbery cases that she had done with him in Albuquerque. But as far as Sandoval County, neither one of them had priors in our county. She wasn't supposed to be in Sandoval County because she was on probation in Bernalillo County. She wasn't supposed to be out of the county.
We all know how that works.
No, Officer Benner wasn't the kind. He's not going to hook her up for that.
Oh, well, no, I didn't mean that. I just mean like as soon as you get an ankle bracelet, for some reason, you just want to get out the damn door. Like I always love to be home, but put an ankle bracelet on me, I'm out. Like what's going on here? Just stay where you're at,
Sometimes you got to make a deal with the devil. But here's the thing. What she gave us for sure was first degree, because first degree deliberate intent is always hard. But from her statements that he had said previously, I'm not going back to prison. If it comes down to me or the cops, it's going to be, I ain't going back. If we didn't have that, it would have been harder to get first degree. I still, confident that we would have gotten it, hopefully, but it would have been harder. And so that's why we ultimately made the deal with her. I mean, originally I didn't want to make a deal with her either.
Right.
But when the judge suppressed half of the defendant's statement, we
had to do something, right?
Yeah, we need to make this deal to solidify our first degree at least.
Right.
Now, Sam, I think you have the pictures. I'd like to bring those up. How hard was it to look at these pictures and let me just bring this up right here. There we go.
This.
How hard was it to look at these pictures and and talk, like I would have broken down crying. My husband's a former Marine, and to see this and just really.
I've seen a lot of, crime scene photos and autopsy photos, but seeing Nigel there when they were working on him and seeing him, the autopsy was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I knew Officer Penner. I knew him.
Wow.
And seeing him there literally dying, because by the time anybody got to him, he was essentially gone. That's what the doctor testified to. Even if they had had an operating room and surgeons right there, they couldn't have saved him. It was just one of those things, the way the bullet went through. Nobody could have saved him. But you know one thing that I'm sorry, I know our police get denigrated all the freaking time. And like I said, I know there's bad cops out there. There's bad everything. But one of the things that impressed me so much about what happened that night, here's the officer who responds to the scene of an officer down. He sees his buddy Nigel there on the ground. He's holding them. He's trying to help give CPR. He's got his buddy's blood on his hands. And then the EMTs came and take him away. And he's got to go right from that to business.
Yeah, your shift's not over.
Yeah.
Get the barriers out, separate the witnesses, take
Well, it's a credit to what they do, and
it really is.
it's such a credit. I mean, at that moment you want to grieve, but yet you have a job to do, and it's
just like she does, just like Barb does, because
just like you do.
Somebody has to be the better man. Either that, or we all just squeal and go, "Ee!" and nobody looks and nobody helps and nobody does anything, and somebody has to jump in. Some people are wired that way, like my brother. He is a first responder. He is that. He cannot be anything but that. He wears a cape. He was born to help other people.
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter what it is. He could be somebody in a wood chipper. He'd go in and try to get him out. It's just who he is. And I get that.
Absolutely. And, it's literally, there's nothing anybody, because of course he had his vest on, but it just went right up underneath the right or the wrong path. And he never really had a chance. The EMTs and fire station are like a block, maybe 2 blocks from where he was shot.
Wow.
So, I mean, they were there.
Well, and there was off-duty EMTs.
Yeah.
But the way the asshole fucking decided to do this was, he's probably a horrible shot too. And I'm going to give you the accolades of this officer in a moment, and you're going to tell me that someone more deserving couldn't have gotten it. You know what I mean? Because this man was, and this person who probably was a horrible shot a veteran who is highly decorated, and then decided to help his community by doing this. That's why it's so asinine.
And I mean, one of the things, Barbie, that you said was, shoot, it just left my brain. Oh, nope, sorry, I completely forgot. Words are hard.
Words are hard.
Thoughts are hard.
There's a lot of thoughts. There's a lot of things going on.
No, we were talking about
so many things.
Oh, yes, I remember now. He didn't have a service weapon on him. He didn't have a taser. He didn't even have his baton when he was shot.
Yeah. You know what? I listened to that, and I'm trying to remember, did I mean that he didn't have it on him or he hadn't drawn it?
Regardless, he wasn't.
I may have misspoken.
Okay.
He might have had him on. I mean, he would have had his. Probably meant was that he hadn't drawn them.
Right, former veteran.
And that's fine. Regardless, he had not drawn them. He wasn't. It wasn't like, get out of the car. It was, I'm gonna go run your shit again and try to get you out of this car, but I'm not being aggressive, you know.
Yeah, too many
Regard-
priors. He spooked out. He's like, "Oh my god, I'm not doing this again. You're not doing it. What are we doing?"
Well,
and then two
I
idiots making a decision.
I also found it interesting. You had said when he was surrounded by cops when they found him,
Yeah,
he made the conscious decision to not do anything,
of
which
course.
if he didn't want to go to jail, I'm surprised he didn't try to do, suicide by cop, right?
Yeah, but he's a chicken.
He didn't.
He's a
He
chicken.
he is
though.
a chicken shit.
He's
Uh,
a chicken shit. He
Absolutely.
ambushed Officer Benner. He knew that he was outnumbered, surrounded, and they had his number, and there's nothing that little fucker could do.
right.
I'm sorry. Is cussing allowed on your show?
Abso-fucking-lutely.
And drinking. Fucking
Yes,
and
it is.
yeah. You can name it.
Yes, it
On
is.
that note, shot.
Yeah. This is fucked
Yeah,
up.
on that note, shot.
This is fucked up.
It was totally because
You know what?
it was
Well,
So,
yeah. I mean, he's like, I'm not
But
going
this
back to
is
fucking
shit.
jail. Let me fucking take this one guy down.
Let me kill this father and war hero.
Yet, when I'm surrounded, I'm a chicken shit, and I have to fucking,
Right. I got to look cool for my girlfriend who also robs Taco Bells. Cheers. Cheers.
I was so.
look at you, AC, on the
Just-
spot tonight.
I
I'm
know.
on top
Right
of
now
it.
he's on the spot. And I'm
That's
behind.
right.
All right.
Don't put you
Cheers,
on. Don't put you
everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers, everyone.
So Officer Benner was Air Force veteran who served his country, right?
Yep.
He I want to get more of his accolades. Maybe I didn't bring that up. But yeah, he was in the Air Force, correct?
yes.
And I was going to bring up his. I hate to look at it, but actually his remembrance page has everything, and that's what I wanted to bring up. But take it away while I find that someone.
And he was well loved, right? Because there was another police officer that testified,
Mhm.
and you know
The
what's
outpouring of love that I saw here on the internet, like it's pages and pages long. It
Yeah.
was- even
Mhm.
today, it was like, hey, 8 years later, it's
Well,
officers are still going.
You know
even
what
in-
sucks?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Rose.
What sucks is that this piece of shit, the way he was acting, and I mean, thank God he's put away, right? But still, I think what makes me so angry is the way he was acting during the court trial. Like, this is all a fucking joke to him.
That's his last thing he can do to you. That's
Mhm.
the last thing he can do is smile before he goes away forever.
Well-
So I'm going to do it. I mean, I'm not going to be that guy, but if I was, I'd be like, I'll do whatever makes you upset before I go.
Say,
Forever. You dragged out.
I
Still,
think
there's a wife there, a wife that is grieving that now lost her partner.
I shouldn't,
That was
but I'm going to say it. He's a cute little thing. He's going to be popular.
He's going to get it. That's what I was saying. His celly is going to be
I love
so
that. I
horny.
love that.
Cute little thing. He
Yeah.
really is.
one thing
People-
I wanted to ask you, Barb. One of the things that the defense in their closing said, it was, you can't put it. Obviously, when somebody pleads the fifth and they're not going to testify, you know what I mean. Don't hold it against them. Blah blah blah. You just decided not to testify. What is your thought on why he didn't get up on the stand? I mean, I could say he probably wouldn't be genuine and he'd be like, yeah, I fucking did it. They didn't want him to say that. They didn't want him to be goaded into that. Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, one thing is probably the most important thing is remember I told you that the judge had suppressed half of his statement.
Oh, yeah. And they didn't want him to say it.
But if he got on the stand and said something different, I would be able to impeach him with that statement.
Nice.
And they knew that he wasn't the smartest.
Barb's
And-
two steps ahead. She
She's
was already
playing
there.
chess all the
Oh
time.
yeah, people
Yes.
playing checkers. Yeah.
Not the brightest light on the tree.
No.
Can I ask you something that's a little bit outside the scope of this particular
Story.
case? Has there ever been a time where you've set up a key witness and they've recanted right before?
Child abuse cases, it happens all the time. Domestic violence cases, it happens all the time.
Why would they pull it right before trial?
Fear?
Fear. little kids, sometimes they don't know whether they can do it until like they're right there, and they either can or they can't, you know. Usually domestic violence victims we know way before, because they'll usually within, you know, a couple of weeks of charging, they'll be contacting our office trying to sign an affidavit of non-prosecution. It never happened. I
Right.
made the whole thing
He
up.
loves me. No one will ever love me.
I love him and he loves me. And yeah.
Right.
When it comes, just kind of on that topic, when it comes to children, are there ways to make them more comfortable? Like, can you make everybody leave the courtroom except for, the lawyers and the people who have to be there and the jury? Or is it something that you can, I mean, again, for a child, it has to be scary. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. It's scary. I've had to testify. It is scary. But yeah, there are things that we do. One of the things that I stress to the prosecutors who do those kinds of cases and the victim advocates is you have to establish a relationship with the kid like right away.
Right.
You
They have
bring
to
the
trust
kid
you.
in.
Yeah.
I never talk to the kid about what happened. I don't need to. I have their statements to the interview. I don't need to talk to them about that. All I need to do is make sure that they're comfortable with me enough to talk to me and tell me what happened. So we spend a lot of time with the victim advocate and the prosecutors building up that rapport. And we also have a courthouse facility dog too, and he is trained to work with victims, particularly kids, young victims. And he's trained to go into court. He hasn't gone into court yet.
No.
He was supposed to, but then that case pled. But you know, he goes, and a kid who's shy and closed up, he comes in and they're just like, oh, and they start talking.
I love that.
Yeah. So there's things you can do. We also, if the case does actually get to go to trial, we know it's going to go to trial. Of course, we take them to the courthouse first. We show them the courtroom. We show them where everybody's going to be. And ideally, if the judge is there, we, have the judge come out and meet the judge and show this is where the judge is going to be sitting. And if he asks you a question, don't be scared. I know he's scary. He's all the way up there, but he's, that kind of thing. So
You're giving me a lay of the land so they don't get scared by anything that
yeah,
might
yeah.
that guy might talk. This is going to happen here.
I mean, it's a process, but it's still hard no matter what you do. I mean, it's still hard for them.
What about juveniles that are? I know I just jumped in because I know we have a limited amount of time. What time is it?
We got about 14 minutes.
About 14 minutes. So I wanted to ask, how do you feel about juveniles that are on the cusp of performing something like Murder One, and then, which I know is rare, obviously, but the ones that are capable of doing that, I'd say they're 16, 17, we know we were doing it 15, 16, but should they be tried as adults, or how do you feel about that?
I will say that most of the cases I've had where we have chosen to charge someone as an adult, they've been warranted, in my opinion. They're murders or they're rapes. Basically, those are the two crimes.
Right.
And yes, I think they're warranted.
Do you believe?
Because for two reasons. First of all, I believe that at that point, the individual knows right from wrong. They know the consequences. That's the first thing. But the other thing is that in New Mexico, yes, they're charged as an adult, but they don't have to get the same adult sentence. So in other words, if they're convicted of first-degree murder, if you're an adult, it's life. It's life,
right,
with the possibility of parole after 30 years or no possibility of parole. Okay. But with a juvenile, even if he or she's convicted of first-degree murder and we gave notice to charge as an adult, the judge still has discretion of probation all the way up to whatever.
There's another layer of protection for that kind of child.
Yes. So there is another protection. And, the defense, and usually they bring in all kinds of reports and to explain why the person should do this or that or get this kind of a sentence. And So there is an allowance for that in there, and our legislature just passed a statute that was pretty controversial, but it allows for the mandatory parole review of a juvenile convicted of first-degree murder after 15 years. So they get an automatic parole review after 15 years.
So I got a question for you. I did a story on Alexa Trevano. I don't know if you did you hear about her?
Uh-huh. Oh yeah.
My question on this one, because she's from New Mexico, she's the one that put her baby in the hospital, she was in the hospital,
She
had her
gave birth in
baby.
the bathroom, and
Yeah. Why did she get only
well, she's
a
not even
curfew?
been tried yet.
She hasn't been tried, but she only has a curfew. She doesn't have an anchor monitor. She doesn't have she's not in jail.
How much was the bail for her?
And she's 19 when this happened.
She probably doesn't have
It was
any.
10,000 or 10 something.
We in this state, God, when was it? 5 years ago, passed a constitutional amendment to it's called the quote unquote bail reform.
Yeah, one of my questions, but we ran out of time.
And basically it's catch and release. So the default position is, for felonies, you're arrested, you get out. We have to prove this. The prosecutor has to file a motion within a certain amount of days, and we have to have a hearing and present evidence to show why this person is a danger to the community, and there's no conditions that'll keep the community safe. But if that's why I don't I keep telling the cops, it's like, why do you arrest these shoplifters? You know they're going to get out.
It's a waste of your time.
I mean, I don't know what you have to do more paperwork. I don't know why you do it.
Yeah.
But
I thought it was for quota.
I
Like they had
see
to
Tara all
make
the
quota,
time.
they had to we got to, do some numbers, do something, but it doesn't matter.
It's a pretty controversial subject in our
Yeah.
state right now.
Right.
The DAs have been every legislative session. We try to reform it and pass reforms, and it's slow going. But yeah, right now it's not good.
We're coming up to our 2-hour mark. Anybody else have any more questions? Before I ask, I'd like for Barbara to give us any good advice, words, or anything that she would think. Do you guys have any questions before we?
One thing I'd like to say, Barb, I would love for you to come back on and let's discuss a case that's not yours.
Yeah.
Let's have you come on and we tell you a case and you go, this is what I would do. Would you be willing to do that?
Sure.
Okay.
Awesome.
I love you so much.
Awesome. Awesome.
This has
She's
been
so awesome.
such a great show.
Yeah.
When I met Dave, you know your family. You know our family.
Oh,
I was
boy.
no. That's not what I mean.
Go on.
Dave goes, I met Dave, and immediately the next night I met his brother. I am Dave's brother.
I am Dave's brother. Yeah.
And then, and then as we go forward, he goes, "Oh, I've got all these sisters." I'm like, "What? I'm really confused."
Boing.
No. Honestly, I love you so much. I'm so blessed to call you a sister-in-law and family. And you I don't know. I mean, I don't do what you do, but you're amazing. What I mean is I love your integrity. I love your passion for what you do. I think
I couldn't do what you do.
I admire you so much. And you're fun. You are. I mean, I love speaking with you, whether it's about your job or not. I mean, it's just I'm blessed to have come into this family and know you and the whole family, obviously. But I really appreciate you doing this for us. And this
I enjoyed it a lot, Sam. Thank you very much.
You're just amazing. Hey, Debbie's checking in, another sister.
Hey, Deb.
Yeah. Definitely would
yeah.
like to have you for one that's not your own. So you're kind of a little bit of a third party objector, but like a jury, I'm sure you're going to be tainted. You're going to hear about
You know
it.
what?
You already know.
I do have a
I don't-
case that I'd love to get her opinion on. I do have a case I'd
I'll say
love to get her
I'll probably
opinion
be
on.
more critical of the prosecution than anybody
I love
because
it.
that's just the way I am.
You're
Yeah.
so good at your craft. You are. I mean,
You know what she's really good at? Separating all that crap she does at work and then coming home and being a normal person.
yes.
You said I'm normal, Sam. Did you tell me
I
was
love what
normal?
No, never.
I love what Dave said. He said, "I'm so very proud of you, sister." That's
He also
awesome.
said, "Can I please
David.
someday come Alan Shore closing argument with you, please?"
And if you ever make it out to Vegas, make sure to let me know. Hit me up. We will go have a drink. We'll invite Rose. She's a couple hours away, so it's a good landing spot if you ever
If
come.
you ever go to Vegas, we'll
Absolutely.
meet there.
Okay.
I am Dave's brother said she isn't normal. No,
Remember,
Right.
guys,
I say
normal's
that.
boring, right?
my birthday's next month. Just let everybody know. My birthday's next month. You never know if we're in Vegas.
True.
Oh
But
my gosh.
thank you so much,
Thank you,
Barbara, for
guys.
Thank
coming
you.
on, and it's an honor to have you here with us. It
Thank
really
you.
is, and
I enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Lots of awesome
There-
insight.
yeah, and I have so many questions, and like I said, I do have a case that I really want to get your opinion on.
Oh, the bail reform thing. I want to.
Right? It's so many things are going through my head right now, but yes, and so and thank you for bringing a light to all this stuff and what things really
course.
go on behind the scene, because sometimes we think that you guys are seeing everything else we're seeing, especially when we see it on YouTube or we see it on court TV or we see it on something. We're like, oh, well, we're seeing it here. They obviously have to see it there. And to share some light that what you see, that's, thank you. Thank you for sharing those bits and
You're
pieces of information for us.
happy to do it. Thank you, guys.
I should have been a lawyer. She's she's normal. I should
Also,
have been a lawyer.
wait. I
That
figured
would have
this
been
out.
cool.
I am not normal.
AC and Rose, I do want to meet you. I would like to meet you as well, Jamie.
Same
We'll
here, Jamie.
we'll
You know
have
what?
to
We're
make
just gonna have to do a big trip to Vegas and have fun.
Yeah,
Like I said, my birthday's coming up, so
let's do it. Let's do it. All
anything
you have
is
to do is
possible.
give
We
me some
got June
time.
and July. We got June and
Mhm.
July, so I can celebrate any of those 2 months. I'm
All right,
good.
well, hit me up if you guys decide to come and do a quick red eye. I'm here waiting for you.
Right. And just to let everybody know, we have a couple things that I want to share with everybody. That Rose the Red podcast has now been launched off on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon. We are also on Podbean. So you guys can actually go find us there if you just want to hear us out, and you don't want to necessarily be on YouTube. You just want to go check us in while you're driving. You can please, and that's where we're at
It's a
now.
big thing.
And
Big to be
It
available
is
on
a
every
big
single
thing,
audio
yeah.
platform. Maybe somebody who has something else can't access us for any reason. You can do it there. So
Yes.
yes. And like I said, thank you everyone for joining us. You'll find this episode on all those coming up here within the next 24 hours. You'll find them
And-
on, like I
yes.
said, on Amazon and them.
And you
And
can see our lovely
thank
faces
you.
every week here on YouTube. Like and
Yes.
subscribe. Smash that button. I don't know. That's dumb, but
Do it.
share the
Yes,
show.
do it.
smash that like
It's
button,
free.
subscribe. Yeah,
As
all of
Dave
that.
always says, it's free to subscribe.
Yes.
It doesn't say hit the button.
Well, thanks,
Hit the
Barb.
button. And you can also find Sam I Am on Wednesday nights on YouTube on the Married Couple podcast with her amazing husband.
Amazing.
So
Dave, he is. With the amazing husband, Dave, he is.
Yes, I am Dave, and Sam I am on the Married Couple podcast, and you can hear us on all the other, podcasting platforms like, Amazon and.
Or you can say, Alexa, play the Married Couple podcast. Shut up. Shut up.
And you can find AC. AC has another podcast that is Midnight Media
We'll be
that
back.
he does.
You'll figure it out.
I'm doing it. I'm figuring it out.
And if you want to come back and you want to listen to his shows, they're amazing. They're great.
They're so
Go
good.
back and hit those likes and give them a follow there too. Share the love and support. And thank you, Barbara, for coming on and being here
guys,
with us.
I appreciate it.
We appreciate you so
That was a
much.
special treat to the audience. I hope you guys would appreciate that, you jerks.
It's probably one of my most favorite episodes, I have to say. Thank you for taking 2 hours with us tonight. And
I appreciate it.
These are billable hours, right? Billable hours?
Yeah, we don't do that in state government. No.
Yeah, right. No, honestly, every moment or every time we have conversations like this with Barb, I just have so much more of an appreciation for what you do and how strong you are and just what a wonderful person you are. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you. Love you too.
Thank you so much.
I love you.
I love you too, Barb.
So don't you all four go anywhere. I'm going to go ahead and click here the off button for a couple minutes, and then I will see you guys in the back room. So
It's weird when I say it, though. It's weird when I say it, right? You guys love her, but when I say it's weird.
Yeah. It is.
It kind of fucking is. Fucking please don't do that.
Good night, everyone, and thank you for joining us, and thank you for being here with us. And like everybody said, please make sure you hit that share, like, and follow, and we will see you next Friday.
And if you don't like fucking true crime, somebody does. Share it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Share it.
Crime? Jeez.
Come on, who doesn't want to be on a
Selfish
podcast
assholes.
with Sam and Dave?
Sam
and Dave and AC. I'm so used to seeing Sam and Dave together that I always say Sam and Dave.
We are in the Rock and Roll Hall of
Fame. Just call me Dave.
You might have said it last week, but I didn't correct you. So
I know.
Dave last week?
I did. I went back and listened, and I saw that too. And I was like, "Oh shit!" AC, I love you. Sorry, AC.
I'm leaving.
Words are fucking hard.
No, names are easy. Words are hard.
Names are hard too. If you're a parent, you don't know. You don't know. Do you call your dogs different names? Probably not.
No, but
my kid.
My mom would be like, Alex, Adrian.
Yes, that's how I am. That's what we do, right, Rose? We just have all these names in our head, and we
whatever your name is,
and any name under the sun.
I thought my name was Jesus Christ till I was 14.
Yeah, I'll yell at Anthony and say, Selena. I'll be looking at George and going, Anthony. And I'm like, no, Selena, no, George. I meant Haley. I'm like 20
wrong
names
fucking kid.
Time.
I get it. I understand.
No, because one, I'm just like Betty. I pick up Betty and I'm like, Jackson. I don't have to never forget my baby.
Have a favorite.
My wife is watching.
Parents aren't supposed to have favorites.
Oh shit. Oh, you came home from down by the river.
He did. I'm surprised.
What's up, guys?
All right. But thank you guys, everybody, for joining. Make sure you can like, follow, and subscribe. We would really appreciate it. We're so close to hitting our goal. Our goal is to hit 500 right now, so we're so close. Please like and subscribe, and love you all.
Help us out. Who else is going to bring you a district attorney? Who?
Nobody. Just us.
Nobody in the game. We're fucking breaking the game right now.
And get ready for some more revealing stuff next week. Love you all.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
I have to pee.
Me too. So
Really.